This is episode 34 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Alyssa Holbrook. Alyssa, welcome to the show. Let's say hi, and I'm going to read your bio in right after.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Alyssa is a certified life coach through the Life Coach School and an advanced certified deep dive coach, which we'll get into. She helps investors build a $1 million real estate portfolio in 6 months by mastering their mind. We always talk about mindset here, so I love that. She's passionate about understanding the mind, becoming a better version of herself, and helping her clients create cash flow so they can live their ideal life. That's a pretty sweet bio. Where did you start with real estate investing? Because I know it was early like me.
Yeah. So I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was homeschooled, so I had time on my hands, and I had a very hard work ethic. And so I had saved up some money. And when I was 14 years old, I bought my first property.
Wow. With the help of parents, or kind of them helping you guide the way, or you just are like, get out of my way, I'm going to do this?
So my dad was helpful in that he helped me find the property.
Yeah.
And other than that, I did so much of it. I remodeled it myself. I mean, there was so much that I did on my own, but definitely my dad was an incredible mentor.
Yeah. 14 years old. Where did the money come from, and how did you figure out how to get a deal at 14?
Yeah. So I had saved up my money to buy a camera. And I thought it would cost about $300. And once I had that $300, dollar by dollar, right, I was earning it by selling flag pins, babysitting for neighbors, and filing at my dad's office. Very slow to accumulate the money. And so once I hit $1,000, I knew there's a way that my money could make money for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm definitely going to do that. I didn't want to spend it on something and have it be gone. And so, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and asked my dad, like, is it possible for me to buy a property? And he said yes, and he found one for me. So
that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, did it help to have a parent or parents who support that right away, to say, like, my 14-year-old's reading like a real estate investing book? That's a little crazy, but to be able to support that. I had the same type of support, so I think it's really important. But also, again, for everybody else, you don't have to have that support to be successful, but we're fortunate that we did have parents who say, like, yeah, you want to buy a house when you're 14, let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely. It was unmatched. I feel like riding around, my dad was a commercial appraiser, and so we would ride in his car and he would just teach me, like, here's what a mortgage is, and here's how you buy a property, and just kind of all the things around real estate, like any questions that I had, but even questions I didn't know to ask. He would just educate me as I shadowed him at work and filed the papers.
Yeah. And I wondered if you think this. I mean, in coaching, the hardest thing is not necessarily to get people to buy into us, but to get them to do the work, because they almost have like a resistance to doing the work. So a lot of times as coaches, we're just saying, like, hey, you said you were going to do X, Y, Z, and you're doing like not even X. So you can't really tell us that we're not completing it. How do you get people to get that mindset to follow along? And have you seen people, especially investing coaching, struggle with the first step of starting to do, the work to get there?
I think first of all, because I'm so action oriented, I think I tend to attract people who do what they say they're going to do. But when we don't, I'm never looking at just like as an accountability partner. That's not how I work as a coach. So I'm looking at what is behind why you didn't take the action. Like, what is the core belief that you're running your life by? That's like your unhelpful power sentence that is running your life, that's having you not take action on this. And when you solve that, it flows into every area of their life. I love the saying, business is a healing modality. And that's really the perspective that I approach it from.
Yeah, I feel like it's an unlocking mechanism, what you're doing. And like, once a client can unlock the one thing that you just helped them get through, then there's like a cascading effect of like, wait, now all the rest of the stuff makes sense. So that really makes sense to me, because you're taking the one little pin block that they didn't even know was it, you remove it, and now it's like, wow, they can see again. Here's the futures out there for them.
Yes. And that part is so rewarding for me. Like, I had a client who she was an entrepreneur. She couldn't make money in her business. And I've she was one of my very first coaches, and I didn't pay her. She was free. And like 8 years later, she came to work with me. And in 15 minutes of a session, when we found out the thing there was a core, I would almost say it's like a trauma, right? This is where the deep dive coach portion comes in, right? Yeah. It's like understanding that we have neural nets in our mind, that we try and avoid touching those parts, that locked up part of us where we don't have access to all of our knowledge because we experienced something that was an emotion that was bigger than we could handle. And that's really what creates a trauma. And then the trauma becomes the neural net in our minds. Well, if you can go unlock that piece, you're now freed to create in the way that you weren't able to before. And so it can be a very short amount of time, but it's very deep work. It's subconscious work. And I don't feel good. For me, like as a coach, I know that I want to be able to handle anything my clients bring, meaning I can meet you anywhere. We can go anywhere. And because business is healing, I feel like that's a vital part of what I do as a coach.
Yeah. So I mean, you also talked about finding highest and best use, and you also talked about, multiple uses. And we always say, like, you definitely need like a backup plan on every property. And what you're saying, all the investments that you're talking about, there's always a backup plan. A flip, if it's not ready for sale or the market goes down, we can just rent it, hang on to it for a while. Maybe it's not optimal, but we're not going to lose money. Commercial buildings have so many different, I love mixed use just because you have residential and commercial, and it's like you just have a diversification inside one property that's so interesting. So I love that. What was the last one that you were going to talk about as well?
Okay, so first about that, I love the more forward thinking that we can be, the better. So when we buy a property, I'm thinking about what are my exit strategies. And I think a lot of new investors maybe don't know to think that way. But I just love that you hit on that. The last perspective of what I think, this is where the most creativity comes in. I want to tell about a property that we bought. So we bought it off market. It was several tracts of land. And we ended up doing sort of like the selling some to one builder, some to another builder, keeping up one piece, one of the, what's it called? The subdivision, what is it called? Just one lot for ourselves, and then negotiating with the builder to build us a property at cost.
Yeah.
And then we keep that, we use the land as the down payment, so it's no more money in, and then we have cash flow every single month.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, like when we get into land plays, we are bringing in a lot of creativity, a lot of fun. It's more risky, but can have a huge payoff. Like that property we put in $220, we got out $320 8 months later.
I love it. Good's boring to me. I want it to be great. I mean, every day can't be great, but why wouldn't I want to try my best to make everything great, or at least put the pieces there to make it happen? One other thing that I really like from this, one thing that makes you a great guest for this podcast, you said, I see real estate as art, which I love. I was also in the art world for 6 years, and I'm a big person obsessed with aesthetics. Like you said, you're revisioning what properties look like. How do you view real estate as art, and what does it mean to you in that context? 'Cause I think I feel the same way. I've always looked at it as art, and I think that's a different mindset than most real estate people.
I think that's so true. So I remember I used to love to paint and draw, and it was like on a piece of paper. And one of my mentors said, she was like, you need to think bigger. I'm like, oh, like a 4x5, like a 4x5 foot. And she's like, no, like bigger. And I didn't get what she was telling me at the time. But like, to me, art is like, it's the clothes that I choose to wear. It's like, it's creating my life. Like I'm the curator of my life. And I think the same thing in real estate, right? Most people, I find this with my clients, they want to buy something that they would want to live in, which is not really a good return. And
no.
I don't mean art as in I made it look perfect. I mean art as in I have this money to work with. And there's a whole world of opportunity and possibility. And like, what am I going to create with this? And how fast can I create it? And how much can I transform these properties? And so that, to me, it's like a much larger scale art of my investing and me as an investor in my portfolio. Maybe I see that as like my portfolio is my art.